Hey there, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Jason Boyer here in Asheville, North Carolina on this, Friday night, almost Saturday morning, September 26th. And I want to get you updated on what is happening in the tropics, what we know, what we don't know, and possible impacts. So first and foremost, the name of the system. It will become Imelda. That's most likely to happen here in the next 24 hours as we see the system pull away from Cuba. Right now, the center of circulation, it's not a consolidated center of circulation. Otherwise, it would already be called Tropical Depression 9, but it's potential Tropical Cyclone 9 at this point. Just know that at some point, it's going to get better organized. And the reason why, it will pull away from Cuba and move closer to the Bahamas and start to have more organizing of the thunderstorms around its center. So in anticipation of that, we already have tropical storm watches for the northern Bahamas and tropical storm warnings for the southern Bahamas. Okay, you can see those colors there of each of those islands. So that is something that obviously will be anticipated in those areas. Tropical storm conditions, very likely. And watch as we go through time. This is the National Hurricane Center's thinking at this point, where this storm will go, how it will evolve, what strength it might get to, and where it might end up. This is the big picture. The steering flow, if you will, for this storm is going to bring it northward initially. Now, once it gets far enough north, it could be drawn to the east rather than the west, okay? Earlier, we were thinking maybe it leans a little more west. We have a landfalling hurricane or tropical storm somewhere in South Carolina, and, there are major impacts, obviously, for the coast and even inland. At this point, there's new information that hints that this is going to start to stall as it approaches the South Carolina, North Carolina coastline. Slow down, maybe stall, and then turn off to the east. And that turn is critical. Obviously, we don't want it to slow down too much because that just keeps more rain coming for days on end for the coast of the Carolinas and even Georgia. But that turn to the east is really key to how the rest of the Carolinas and really the southeast fare with this system. So that's new data. That is something good. So is it possible we never have a landfalling system? Absolutely. In terms of the United States, we might not have Imelda, once it forms, really ever make landfall. That is the possibility. So watch the wind. This is the tropical storm force winds. We're talking 39 miles per hour or up to 73 miles per hour. That is the threshold of a Category 1 hurricane at 73 miles per hour. And then you get into 74 and above, you're in the hurricane status. So, you can see we're going to have the likelihood of tropical storm force winds approaching South Carolina. And it's a medium probability that they reach the shore, reach areas right along the coast. They could even reach up into southeastern North Carolina sometime later next week. All right. But this model is not saying we're going to have hurricane force winds. All right. So there you go. Thinking maybe remains a tropical storm. All right. Let's watch it as it plays out here in terms of rainfall. So wind impacts moderate. No doubt moderate wind impacts for the coast of the Carolinas. Rain is likely the biggest issue. All right. And why? Because it slows down. It's days worth of rain. And some of these areas off the coast and close to it are maybe 10 to 12 inches of rain, okay, in some spots. And this is just an early idea. These numbers could go up, right? And they could go down in some cases, but mostly steady as she goes at this point. And the farther away from the center of circulation, the better you are in terms of rainfall. So back over western North Carolina and the upstate of South Carolina, we're talking 2 to 4 inches of rain in some isolated cases. That's not going to be widespread, I don't think. Is that enough to cause big concerns? Not really, because you can spread it out over 3 days, 2 days, 2 to 3 days. And, that's not going to cause major issues, okay? But if you're on the coast or near it, there's probably going to be much bigger impacts from all of that. So here are the keys, the track scenarios, two kind of scenarios we think may play out, or at least possibilities right now. The first one is the system coming right at the South Carolina coastline, either stalling or briefly having a landfall. That increases the risk, obviously, for more flooding and wind and maybe isolated tornadoes. And here in the Western Carolinas, we would see medium or moderate impacts from that kind of a scenario. That means the system doesn't come all the way our way and bring us tremendous amounts of rain, but we would have some impacts, obviously. Well, the other scenario is that the system begins to turn farther away from the coast, and that is a possibility still at this point. I just showed you the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. If that occurs, Western North Carolina and the Upstate, we fare much, much, much better. All right, very little impacts if that is the case. Coast would still have some impacts, but even there, the impacts would be less. So that is what we're hoping for, that turn to the east. So the biggest questions or the unknowns are, how far west will it go? Does the system stall? And how strong is it really going to get? Those are big ones. Those make a big difference, okay, in terms of the overall outcomes. So we're going to be watching this. I'm going to show you one computer model here. This is the European. And earlier, it definitely wanted to bring Imelda up into the coast and probably have a landfall at some point. Now, this is just one computer model, and then kind of dissolving the system slowly later in the week, next week. That's one idea, just to show you that there's a lot of rain involved in that kind of a scenario. But that scenario may not happen, all right? It's just one of those two scenarios I showed you, and the other one is a much favorable scenario where we have it going east. So we're going to be watching this and expect changes, and stay with News 13, stay with your local meteorologist wherever you're watching, but we're going to have updates here on our YouTube page and online as well. We appreciate it. Now's not time to panic by any means. Just sitting back and watch, and if your friends or family members are on the coast, they probably should be paying very close attention, obviously, for any preparation mode. And that would probably kick in sometime this weekend if the track remains and we have major impacts of rain and possible flooding. Then that's the time to prepare. Okay? Well, stay safe, everybody, wherever you're watching from, and have a great day.